Welcome to PP Knowledge Hub. Today we are going to take our next topic, the making of nationalism in Europe. So today is our topic, the making of nationalism in Europe. In this topic we will study the condition of Europe in the mid-18th century. Today we know in Europe many countries are there, but in the mid-18th century the European countries like Germany, Italy and Switzerland were divided into many kingdoms. Eastern and Central Europe were under autocratic monarchies. Within the territory lived diverse people, means diverse population living together, and they do not share any collective identity or common culture, and they spoke different language and they belong to different ethnic group. So this only I told. Now in Europe many countries are there, but in the mid-18th century many European countries, I told example like Germany, Italy and Switzerland, they were divided into many kingdoms, and these kingdoms diverse population living together and they spoke different languages. Let us discuss it with one example. Habsburg Empire. Habsburg Empire ruled over Austria and Hungary. It was a patchwork of many regions and people. It included Alpine region, Austria, Bohemia. Here aristocracy or aristocratic people, they mainly spoke German language, or they were German speaking people, and here also lived Italian speaking people, or here also have Italian speaking provinces such as Lombardy and Venetia. In the case of Hungary, half of the population spoke Magyar language, half of the population spoke Magyar language, and other half of the people spoke variety of dialects or variety of languages. And we are looking the case of Galicia. In Galicia, aristocracy spoke Polish language. From this we can understand that a different linguistic people or diverse population living together in Habsburg region. Such differences did not promote a sense of political unity. Now we will look how did nationalism and the idea of nation state emerge. Our next topic, aristocracy and the new middle class. Aristocracy and the new middle class. Aristocracy was the dominant class on the continent. So who was the dominant class on the continent? Aristocracy. These class were united by a common way of life. They were united by a common way of life, and they owned estate in the countryside and town houses. Estate in the countryside and town houses, everything owned by this aristocracy. And they mainly spoke French language, and their families were often connected by the ties of marriage. Their families were often connected by the ties of marriage. And this aristocracy, I already told, they were the dominant class, but these dominant class, they were powerful also. These aristocrats were powerful, but they were numerically small group. Numerically they were small group. And who were the majority population? The majority of the population was made up of peasants. Now we will look what are the changes happened in the society. So you heard about industrialization or industrial revolution. Industrial revolution began in England in the second half of 18th century. So where the industrial revolution began? Industrial revolution first started in England. Later it spread to Europe and other parts of the world. Anyway, what is industrial revolution means? Many technological changes happened in the field of industry, means many machines introduced and productions were largely concentrated on factories. These all are some features of industrial revolution. So this industrialization led to the emergence of new social classes, a working classes and a middle class, a working classes and a middle class. This middle class include professionals, industrialists, businessmen, etc. Among these educated liberal middle classes, the idea of national unity and the abolition of aristocratic privileges gained popularity. Our next topic, liberal nationalism. What did liberal nationalism stands for? The term liberalism is derived from Latin word liber, meaning free. The term liberalism is derived from Latin word liber, which means free. Let us discuss what is liberal nationalism stands for. For new middle classes, liberal nationalism stands for freedom for individual and equality before law. So what about new middle classes? Liberal nationalism stands for freedom for individual and equality before law. Now, politically, it emphasized, liberal nationalism emphasized the government by consent. Politically, it emphasized the government by consent. The government by consent. Since French Revolution, liberal nationalism stood for the end of autocracy and clerical privileges. End of autocracy and clerical privileges, a constitution and a representative form of government through parliament. So what about since French Revolution, liberal nationalism stands for? Liberal nationalism stood for the end of autocracy and clerical privileges, a constitution and a representative form of government through parliament. Then in economic sphere, liberal nationalism stood for the freedom of markets, abolition of state imposed restriction on the movement of goods and capital. So what about in the economic sphere, liberal nationalism stands for? Liberal nationalism stood for the freedom of market and abolition of state imposed restriction on the movement of goods and capital. So these are the main point about liberal nationalism. So I told you in the economic sphere, liberal nationalism stood for the freedom of market. From this we can understood that there would be restriction for the free movement of goods and capital. Let us discuss it with one example of German speaking region in the first half of 19th century. In last class we studied about Napoleonic administrative measures. Anyway, Napoleonic administrative measures had created a confederation of 39 states. His administrative measures created a confederation of 39 states. Each of these states possessed its own currency and weight and measures. Each state had its own currency and weight and measure. So we will look a merchant traveling in 1833 from Hamburg to Nuremberg to sell his good. He had to pass 11 custom barriers and pay custom duty about 5% each one of them. So what about the custom barriers? 11 custom barriers and to pay the duty about 5% each one of them, and duties were levied according to the weight and measurement. Duties were levied according to the weight and measurement of region. Each region had its own weight and measure. So it involved a time consuming calculation. L is the measurement of the cloth. Actually, L means the length from our elbow to the tip of middle finger. This L, actually I told it is the measurement of cloth, and this L varied from region to region, means the length of the L, it varied from region to region. For example, in Frankfurt it was 54.7 centimeter of cloth. At the same time in Nuremberg it was 65.6 centimeter. So the length of the L, it varied from region to region. So just imagine about a trader. This trader want to sell his goods. So he had to cross 11 custom barriers and want to pay custom duty about 5% each one of them. So this person want to give different tax in different region, and one region if he crossing means giving 1% of tax, and next region the tax is different because tax is calculated on the basis of weight and measurement of the goods. So I told no weight and measurement, that also varied in region to region. So this person want to give another tax in another region, then after that crossing another region again it was different. So actually it was very difficult task. Such condition created obstacles to economic exchange and the growth of new commercial classes. So how this problem was solved? For solving this problem, in 1834, a custom union or a sovereign was formed. A custom union or a sovereign was formed in 1834. Who took the leadership or who took the initiative? Initiative was taken by Prussia. Under the initiative of Prussia, this custom union was formed, and it was joined by most of the German state. Most of the German state was joined in this custom union, and the union abolished tariff barriers. And reduced the currency. Reduced the currencies from over 30 to 2. Reduced the currency from 30 to 2. So once again I will tell, in 1834 a custom union or a sovereign was formed. Initiative was taken by Prussia. Most of the German states joined in the custom union, and the custom union abolished tariff barriers and reduced the number of currencies from 30 to 2. Today this much only. I think today's portion is clear to you. If you understood my class, please share and subscribe. For getting new notification, click the bell icon and press the all button. We will meet in the next class.